All right, guys. Thanks for coming. I'm glad this worked out. To try this again, so there's more people on, we can have better conversation. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Not too bad.
Can't do any sculpting?
I was pretty
I-
good, then I fell behind with break.
Yeah, cool. I decided to make an armature. Got a couple things here on my table tonight. Oopsie. Close that.
My wife needs to use my computer just real quick, so I'm gonna mute again real quick.
Okay. I found this sculpt that I started, wow, how long ago? Maybe 5 years ago, and have not finished yet. Thought maybe I would at least get some clay on the arms, but it's crazy that the clay is still supple enough to be manipulated.
Oh wow.
It's not baked or anything. It's sat in a jar, my little topper thing that I do here all that time. So we'll see. If not, I'll just peel off a bit. And I think that this batch though used a lot more mix quick, which is a conditioner, so it's probably was more conditioned than I normally use.
Hmm.
But anyways, you guys have any specific questions or topics you want to discuss? I actually have some questions from another guy, Dog Tanyan, that I'm more than happy to go into if you guys don't have anything specific on your minds. Oh, I gotta switch over to the chat. Let's see if Ananda's talking. Where is it? There it is. There we go. I started working on the next tutorial, so I'm going to put up a post on the Patreon soon for everybody to go vote on the next topic. I have a couple
Cool.
other things in the can, but I like to, work on things you guys are interested in seeing.
Nice.
So be ready with your thoughts and suggestions.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. We're way too tall. 19. All right, I'm just going to do this real quick. Then read out some of Dog Tanyan's questions. Okay. All right, where did that go? Oh man, I think I closed it. Oh no, here it is. Okay, so Dog Tanyan, he's a patron. He sent a couple questions that he wanted me to go ahead and answer if we have time tonight. It looks like we do, so here we go. His first question is, do you think there are already too many miniature sculptors, or is there room for more? I sometimes wonder how many different miniatures there are in the world. There seem to be miniatures for everything, in every conceivable pose and style I can imagine. I bet if I were to do a Google image search for a miniature of a robot duck or a fairy with a flamethrower, I'd find one. On the other hand, with countries like China opening up, I wonder if perhaps there are new marketplaces. Although I'm not sure what kind of miniatures they like in China. Come to think of it, I don't know how many professional miniature sculptors there are around the world. Either hundreds or thousands, or just a few dozen. Well, I'll answer that first one first. as far as I know, I think there's probably only hundreds. I mean, there might be more, but I don't know. Back when I first got started, there really only seemed like there was like under 50 in the whole world that were really doing most of the professional work. I mean, there were obviously always more than that, but the ones that were consistently doing it, it was probably less than 50. I mean, even down to 20. It's a pretty tight little group. Um, at least the ones that you would be aware of. There were always, stables of people at Games Workshop and whatnot, but they were always kind of kept hidden and stuff. And I think that's a lot of what you're seeing now is there's more are people who grew up in that sort of environment where they were studio sculptors and they've started to branch out. But yeah, there are a lot of sculptors these days, and with the advent of digital becoming a viable thing, you see a lot of other people who might have been into miniatures or interested, or sometimes not even interested. They just see this as another avenue to get some work, and so there you got a lot more people jumping in and into this little market. But yeah, there are a lot of miniatures out there, and you're right. You probably could find a robot duck or a fairy with a flamethrower, but everybody, it's the same thing with comic artists or just plain illustrators. If you think there's a lot of sculptors and miniature sculptors, there's way more people who are drawing and illustrating, and they just keep coming. And yeah, it's hard, and most people aren't going to get to do consistent professional work just because of the amount of stuff that's out there. But doesn't mean you shouldn't try, and doesn't mean you won't be one of them. So let's see, what was the other thing he asked about? Yeah, just the number of miniatures. And then, the other thing I don't think you exactly asked it, but you were kind of implying that maybe there's no more miniatures left to be made. But man, just look at the dungeon crawls coming out now and stuff. You see people, they just do another rendition of a barbarian, elf, dwarf, and wizard, and people buy them, and you can use that analogy for all sorts of things, different sci-fis or games or any trope. And it just seems like people like miniatures, you, me, and everybody else can't get enough of it, and can't help ourselves but buy more. So, all right, his second question is asked if I had ever tried James Van Schake's method of sculpting faces. He covers this in a miniature mentor video tutorial, which I would really suggest to all you guys if you're interested. The miniature mentor videos are awesome. They have one by James Van Schake, couple by Aragorn Marks, and at least one by Jag, and they're great. I actually have James, but I don't think I've actually watched the whole thing, so I need to get to that. But anyways, the technique he does in the video is he adds the eyeballs before he does the face. So he'll do kind of an understructure skull, I believe, and then he pops in like elements for the eyes, and then he basically sculpts skin over that. And yeah, Doug Tanyan says that he found that really, really challenging, and his head's always ended up too large and whatnot. And I've never tried that way. A lot of times the way I do details and stuff, I cut them in and position that way. I don't do a lot of understructure buildup where the understructure is exposed and then you put a layer on top of it. I don't do that so much. It does seem to me like it could be possible, but you would definitely have to get used to the idea of having all that under material. And James typically sculpts with putty also. I should point that out. Where I do Fimo. So I could do something like that. You would have to put the putty down and then put the Fimo on top, and it's just easier to do it all in one with one material for me. But since he's constantly building up material with putty, he can lay down a skull structure, put in some eyes, let it cure, put the skin over top, things like that. So yeah, it's as you sculpt, you'll pick up tips and tricks. You'll find out different ways. Some people might find that way easier to do than the eye technique that I've shown. And if you do, then that's what you should do. It's all about getting the results you want. And I just try and show you the way I do it and the way that I think works best to help you get farther. And his third question, this was a very interesting one. It says, would you agree that purely in terms of making money, historical miniatures such as Napoleonics are where it's at? That was something I read several years ago, but I don't know how accurate the claim was or if it holds true, or if it still holds true. I've never heard that. I have never experienced that, but I'll give you the caveat that I am not a historical sculptor or gamer, and I think I only know one person that has a business with it. And I mean, obviously there's a big business. Historical miniatures, people buy that and do well. But the one thing I have heard from most people is that um, fantasy miniatures is where it's at because with I don't know if this speaks to the whole business side as much, but for Napoleonics and stuff like that, you typically have to sell a whole slew of miniatures, and they're typically fairly cheap per model. Whereas a lot of times with fantasy, you can get away with charging $10 for a miniature, and they're typically a little more detailed, more flamboyant, maybe even a little larger. But still, the cost of material and labor to make it is much less, or not less. It's not proportionate to the amount being charged, so you tend to make more. But I don't know. So I'm sure there's lots of people making a fine living at it, but I know plenty of people that make a good living in fantasy. I'm sure you have. It goes both ways in both genres. Um, a lot of people try, and some succeed. So I mean, that's where I make my money. I don't make it in historicals. I make it fantasy and sci-fi, but it doesn't mean you can't. So I would say do what you're interested in making and put that out there. And if that's historicals, go for it. So, okay, that is all of Dogtanian's questions. Is you working on anything recently, Andrew?
Yes. Can you see me? Because
I
my
can, yes.
can. Oh, okay. Because it's not showing up on my screen. But anyway,
Oh, I have it locked to my table, I think, right now.
okay. Can you
You
see
see it?
the guy I'm holding up?
Yes. Here, I'll lock it on you. Here, let me make it a little bigger.
That you?
Ananda's going to sculpt a robot duck if there isn't one. It's very dark, so can you hold it a little closer?
Yeah, let me
There you go. That's
go.
point it so that there's not a light behind the camera. Point to like a wall. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
There we go. Cool. So you have a blockhead.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
Cool. What kind of character is he?
he's an android that gains sentience and now works as an intern in a law office.
Can you pull it up just a little higher? I think it's underneath all the icons on my screen.
Yeah, and yeah, he doesn't speak, so he carries this little chalkboard around for him to write messages on. So that's what's hanging around his neck. And
Gotcha.
this one's actually quite a bit larger than the other ones I've done. It's
hmm Looks
quite,
closer to 40,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah, between 40 and 50. He's about
Cool.
the height of the ones I've been doing. So. Which was nice because it allowed me to do more detail, like on like the pockets on the back and
hmm
that.
Yes, that is nice, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, so I'm gonna paint him up maybe this weekend.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it was nice doing I wanted to do a pose that wasn't like an action pose, but still had some life to it. So,
Hmm.
and notice I haven't really seen that many miniatures that are actually in a walking pose.
Right.
So I tried to kind of get that posture down.
Yeah, they're either they tend to either be super flat plane, to make it easy for molding, or these days they're crazy dynamic, which I'm
Yeah.
guilty of.
Uh-huh.
But I really enjoy sculpting casual poses that are interesting. Like you were saying, do walking, but make it look good and lively.
Right. Yeah, actually, if you wanted to do a tutorial sometime on action poses, that's something that I'd like
Action
to.
poses, you said?
Yes, I'd
Okay,
more
that's a good idea.
experience on doing that.
Hmm. Yeah, I haven't really covered too much on posing. I think I did a cursory one a while ago, just kind of general, get you by kind of thing. Oh, that's a good idea.
Thanks.
Also, like those little tweaks you can do to make certain poses seem just a little bit more dynamic.
Right. Yeah, I can already think of a couple of things I would definitely show and point out that can help. Because really, what it the thing that is most important is giving the figure the proper weight. It's easy to make a dynamic. Well, it's can be easy to make a dynamic pose, but to make it look natural and weighted correctly, that's the trick. And it's the same even if it's not dynamic, even if it's just a guy walking.
Hmm.
If you don't have the right kind of weight to it, distribution and stuff, it looks wrong.
Yeah, and I could
That's
see
a good
how
idea.
it might be a challenge to get like the clothes and hair all kind of
That's
aligned
right.
so that, they all
Yeah,
have the same sense of direction.
right, right. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do to kind of throw it off.
Hmm.
Okay, there we go. My stinking glue bottle lid is glued together. Oh, I'm in like disheveled mode. There we go. This is what I worked on last Hangout when nobody showed up. Well, actually, Rich did show up, but he was coming later, and I totally missed his message that he didn't get the invite. So I I'm working on
That
converting this Age of
America,
Sigmar.
though.
What'd you say?
Sorry about that, but Captain America was really good.
Oh yeah, it was. I got to see that last week too. I might even seen it the day you did, but just earlier in the day. So this is one of the heroes from the new Wormer Quest,
Oh,
and
cool.
I didn't want him to be so Sigmar-y looking, and I noticed he had a lot of lions on him, so I filed off the hammer off of this shield, got it all cleaned up, and then I added like a lion head motif similar to he had on the shoulder pads. So then I'm going to sculpt him a head so he looks like a human knight and not whatever ghost knight or whatever they are. I don't know. I don't get the whole storyline of all that stuff. I miss old Warhammer.
Are you using epoxy sculpt for that?
I am going to use a pot. Yeah, I am. Yeah, this is Aves and Procreate again. Like I said, I don't use
Yeah.
putty a ton, but this is an instance where you kind of need to because I can't bake this. I mean, yeah, I don't think I can make this. I'm most certainly melt. So,
So you tend to favor it more so for doing conversions then?
what'd you say, Ananda? You're breaking up.
Oh, do you tend to favor it a little bit more so for conversions?
Yeah, I definitely use it when I do conversions, if that's what you asked. So,
Yeah.
because yeah, then it's very sticky, so you don't have to worry about it not, it will stick to the whatever you're working on, and then I'm done with it. I set it aside and it cures, and I don't have to heat it up or anything. So It's nice. Wow. So you say you're not working on anything at the moment, Ananda?
Um, I was, then after I went home for Memorial Day, I
Gotcha.
brought it with me, but actually I think I brought some stuff to see if I wanted to do another armature, but I haven't had a chance to really sit down and work on it again since then, doing some other stuff.
Yeah. I actually did understand you, even though when you probably hear yourself on the playback of this, you'll be like, how do you know what I said? Cool. So you have any thoughts on what you want to see in a future tutorial video?
I think we talked about like seeing a character from like drawn out sketch planned to completion was one of the things we were thinking about before,
Can
right?
you type that in real quick?
Yeah.
It is really hard to hear you.
Am I just soft or?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's like very garbly and robotic.
Okay.
So it's like every other syllable is like blah blah blah. There we go. Gotcha, Andrew. I got your message. Thanks. All right. Yeah, it's always difficult with all these little connections on here. Let's see. Character from design sketch to completion. Oh man, yeah, that's a series. Yeah, that'd be fun. I Yeah, that's a good idea. Well, I'll definitely put it on the. I'm gonna put up the voting sheet again this week, and definitely put that on there, and put your name by that if that's what you want to see next. And but I like all the suggestions that everybody's been giving and stuff, and I hope to get them all eventually. But I've been like to prioritize the ones that most people want to see. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Not sure where Rich is. He has some really cool stuff he's been working on. He's been very busy since last time, and looking forward to talking to him about that. Man, I haven't made a new armature in a while. I'm kind of feeling rusty. I should go on an armature binge some night and just make like 20 of them or something. Let's see. Gotcha. So you're liking the FEMU? I mean, there's a certain sense of security with the putty because you know when you work with it, it will set up, it will cure. You know, it's a little more durable, and you can also not mess with what you've done. But that's also a hindrance in a way. You know why I actually kind of I prefer the Fimo and stuff because I like the ability to go back and manipulate. But I can understand that. Plus, you know, I think putty's harder to sculpt with, so. It is good to know both, though, that's for sure. Trying to keep the tool marks out of it. Yeah. Have you been using mostly metal tools, or have you been using a clay shaper much? Or color shaper, whatever they're called. Sananda, he said he was having trouble keeping tool marks out of the Fimo. Gotcha. Yeah, with the clay shapers, you definitely need to have a little bit of lubricant on it, so that otherwise it'll drag on the clay. I actually really like using my metal tool mostly for smoothing, but it's one of those things. It's the same with green stuff, but it is more amplified. That when you, it's very easy to pop your smooth surface, you know, bump it with your tool just the wrong way, and leave little divots. Or plus, you have to tend to. It's a little, in some ways, it's a little more difficult to smooth, just because the material can be, you know, what you're the new clay and the old clay are both wet, so you're moving stuff around. You're trying to keep your shape. But putty, when you're putting soft putty on cured putty, it can you can be as forceful as you need to be to smooth it in, blend it in together. So yeah, Vaseline does work great for putty. Just be very sparing with it. You don't need a lot. It's easy to put too much, and that's okay. It just makes it harder to stick more on if you put too much. So give this guy some arms finally after like 5 years of having him sit in a jar. Maybe this will be my Gen Con entry this year. He probably won't win anything though. He's fun, but not very detailed or nothing really unique or especially difficult about concept sculpting. You think this figure's rich? No, this is not a hobbit, although it could be. It's supposed to be a little kid. I named Little Knife. It was just this little, back when I was doing medieval figures, fancy figures for my little miniatures line. This is an idea I had. I've had all these different ideas for different, like mercenary characters, fantasy mercenaries, and one of them was going to be a little kid that carried around this big sword, this big Viking sword, and could never quite use it, but made him. He felt big and tough. So. Yeah, I guess so. Although this would be a regular person's sword. It's big to him. Let's see. Where's the guy I have? This might give a little sense of scale. This is a Tray Manor Necromancer miniature that I'm going to paint. Let's see. So, I'm doing this guy in a much more cartoony style, so his head's much more in proportion with that. Trey does a more realistic, or I'd say like comic book style, because he still has a lot of great style and interesting proportions, but head's going to be a little smaller. Gotta get this done, man. It's taking me forever. Getting rusty. Let's see. Another suggestion: how I go from sculpt to mold. Do that. Yeah, that's a good idea, and I have a little at-home mold making kit, so I can definitely show that to you guys. I usually just send them out though, but every now and then there will be something little that I just want to have a quick version of, and then I'll use my little kit. But most of the time I just leave it to the professionals. But it's still great to cover. It's a very, very, very important element of miniature sculpting that most people aren't completely aware of, and it would help them a lot to know more about it. So, man, this guy I did so long ago, I'm not even sure if I was prepared to sculpt the hands onto his little sword here, if I was going to do it afterwards in green stuff. But the way this is set up, it makes a lot more sense for me to put in that little bit extra clay on here, or something, yeah, putty, and then do Fimo over top. So that's what I'm gonna do. I actually was talking to my mold makers about possibly doing an interview with them. They're kind of shy though, so I don't know if that'll happen. It would be awesome. So they're cool. They have so many stories have been around. They've been in the industry for a long time. You know, so many sculptors and worked with so many people. They are some of the guys that really helped. I mean, I started before I met them, but they, in some ways, really helped me get my start, because just the knowledge of things you have to know about molding the figures was invaluable to help me make good figures that could be cast and not be in. That's a big issue if you're going to work for companies or even your own stuff. You know, just you don't want to make figures that are a pain to mold unless you know you are. Then you can plan for it. You know, chop up the figure appropriately, but it's always good to know when you're making a complicated piece rather than finding out after the fact. After sending it to the mold maker and they tell you they have to cut it up, or you have to cut it up, or it's going to be a lot of extra money to mold. There's my clay. Here it is. Gosh, it's been so long. Okay. Man, my eyes are getting kind of buggy. A lot of allergies flying around. I'm waking up with gunk in my eyes. It's kind of giving me foggy vision. Not good for sculpting. I might try setting this video up in my new setup next time, because it really is a pain to sculpt. I don't know how I did as many videos as I did with this setup. It's really hard for me to get down and see what I'm doing. Let's see. Andrew asked, when do you work for a company, or when you do work for a company, do you need to show concept sketches or anything? It depends. Not usually. Usually they have a concept already. If they don't, usually you're working from description, but in that case, I do usually try and provide some sort of, even just a rough sketch, just because it helps make things more obvious about what it'll be. But depending on what I'm working for, if I can do without a sketch, I will, just because it takes time, and as much as I like to draw, and I've gotten a lot better at it over the years, recent years even, sculpting is my strong suit. So when you're working on a commission, commissions are pretty slim. Not that, I mean, what the industry pays, I mean, typically. So gotta make every minute count. Wow, interesting. Look at that. I don't know if you can tell, the color is way different. I must have made a much lighter batch of gray back in the day, or maybe that is because I had so much more mix quick, because it's a white. But man, this is a much darker material. That's interesting. Didn't realize. Thought I'd been using basically the same batch all these years, but guess not. Good old nose grease to help the tool glide over the clay. You can use Vaseline too, though. I would say, if you ever sculpt for a company, though, do yourself a favor, and them. Make sure, unless they really, for real, leave it completely up to you, which is rare. Most places, even if they say it's up to you, when it comes time to it, they'll be like, oh, change this, change that. I didn't expect it to be this way. But anyways, so typically, I would really suggest is send them an armature, a shot of the armature posed, possibly bulked out some. And what I mean by that is just having at least this thin layer of clay, because it can be hard for most clients, unless they're really, well, even if they are well versed in miniatures, but most of the time they're not really as well versed in miniatures as they think. It can help them see the form more when there's some material, which just wire, you get weird perspectives that happen where you can't tell exactly where which way things are pointing. But if you send them a pose, they don't like it or something, it's very easy to change. Otherwise, it can be more difficult to make your adjustments. Especially with this, if it's green stuff, it's a little easier because you can chop things up, move it around, you can push on the figure. But with this, like if I need to make this guy's legs bend a little more, I have to push down the figure. Well, that's going to crush everything that I've done up top, so not good. I have to do some backfilling on this. I just realized. That's okay. So that's something that I'll probably cover in a future video, about the idea of undercuts. I've not really, basically been telling everybody how to sculpt, which is good and important, but this is sculpting miniatures, and if you are going to get it molded, a lot of things you really do have to consider. You can't just do whatever you want. I mean, there's a reason so many figures are kind of on a singular flat plane. It's because they're easy to cast. You can cast them in a single piece and minimize undercuts. But it's easy to kind of forget about all that when you're making a cool figure. You just want to cut loose and do whatever you want to do. But it can be fun to figure out ways to make dynamic shapes and poses with those restrictions, though. Is that we can end up having some neat solutions. If you use a good mold maker, you can get away with a lot of crap, although they might hate you. Okay, let's get this last little bit on here. Oh. And a little more back here. Man, I was so jazzed about this figure. I don't know. I got on to other things, and oh, that's what happened. I was gonna do it because I had basically when I started my own little miniature line way back in the day, I had it started off with these 3 sci-fi girls in these similar jumpsuits, kind of jumpsuit uniform things with different specialties, and then 2 fantasy figures. One was a barbarian, and one was a dwarf. I love them both very much. They're both very good figures, but nothing too special or unique about them. Maybe on the barbarian, but he was kind of a pretty static pose and stuff. So, but I was gonna do more fantasy, but man, people wanted the sci-fi females like 10-1 to the fantasy, and even after my website went up, I put them for sale on my website. I started off as a Kickstarter, and even after it was probably less. It was probably more like 20-1. It's pretty ridiculous. So I think that's probably the biggest reason. I was like, well, people want sci-fi stuff, so I guess I'll keep scoping the sci-fi stuff. Okay, well, let's hope I got this on here, but let's hope that I don't leave this guy alone for another 5 years. That would be sad. Okay, guys, any last questions or comments? It's a little after 10 now, so I'm going to hop off, but give you a chance if there's anything else. Pick up my clay. Cool, yeah, well, thanks for hanging out, guys. Appreciate it. And, yeah, look forward to seeing what for you to vote on the next topic and in the next Hangout. See you later.